All right, let's go. All right, Tim. What are we going to talk about? And we have to talk about Patrick Roy.
Yeah, boy, that came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and the Islanders. Imagine the Islanders of all the
Yeah,
teams.
like you would think, Toronto. Not saying that Keefe's going to get fired, or Ottawa. They had a thing, but you never know. Like the Islanders are a bit underachievers.
Yeah, they've got a good goalie. And he'll get them going. If anybody can get them going, it should be Patrick Roy. Wow.
Or as you called him on Hockey Night in Canada, Pat Roy.
Pat Roy.
You were the one that said, well, I don't know about you, Ron, but when I was young and I used to go to the movies, I watched Roy Rogers, not Wall Rogers. Well, that went over quite well. Do you remember that? That went over quite well.
Seemed to
put that on your checklist of getting people upset.
Well, they won't. The team won't fall asleep because he's behind the bench. He's pretty lively.
Oh, he's pretty lively, boy. And
well, you got to look at it. They're only 3 points out of a playoff spot. So I look like Lamorado said, we either got to make a move now, or what? I mean, because they're kind of they're slipping out. It's they're halfway through the season, so they're only 3 points out of a playoff spot, and they're only 6 points out of third place. So
well, anyhow, they got Patrick Roy, and we'll see how he does.
Do you think that ex-goalies make good coaches a little bit more?
I don't understand that.
They don't.
They don't.
They don't make as good coaches,
well,
right?
I don't understand that. One thing is stop pucks.
See, I would have thought that they would be analyzing the game, sitting there, standing back there by themselves, that they would have the game all figured out. But then normally you're saying they don't make good coaches. Is that it?
Well, I don't know. Tim doesn't think they.
How was Gerry Cheevers? He coached the.
Well, he used to follow me.
Yeah. Well, his first coaching job was you got thrown out of the game.
Yeah, and he took over.
He took over behind the bench.
I remember. Wasn't he in his goalie pads?
Yeah, he was like Gilly was in net, so Gerry was backup. You got thrown out because, I think the guy gave Dwight Foster a penalty. And
I said I tell you one thing, if he gives Dwight Foster a penalty on that, he did, and I was going, I must have been nuts in those days. I was actually going out on the ice after the guy.
You were standing on the boards.
Yeah.
I don't know how you did that.
Well, you look at the top of boards, maximum 4 inches, 5 inches?
Yeah.
And you used to walk up and down.
I tried that. I said, I know I used to, geez, I couldn't do that like a normal.
Right.
Like
your adrenaline wasn't flowing.
Whatever it was, I could walk on it during the game, but I couldn't.
That's
like
scary.
After a practice or something like that. I was saying boots. Same boots.
Yeah, thin. Yeah.
Same things. Oh well, that's the way it goes.
But it was funny seeing Gerry behind the bench with his goalie pads on, directing traffic back there.
I think he only had 8 minutes.
Yeah, it was less than 10 minutes ago. But but as you said, you guys rolled the line so well.
Well, you could have had Mickey Mouse behind the bench. You know what really makes me really chuckle, I guess? When the assistant coach gets the board out and he goes down the bench and he goes, yes. You go this way, you go that way. They don't do this during the practice. I just don't understand that.
Yeah, I think I love most of that's for show. Like I think there's just a lot of things where I think Canadians were trying to make it more like basketball and football.
Oh, whatever. Anyhow, it seems strange to me. Well, I hope Patrick Roy does good. He earned it, and we'll have a lot of fun watching him. I know one thing. I'll be watching the games.
So, Dad, we asked for questions. I think we're up to almost 600 questions now from people. And one of the questions a couple of people have asked, must be Montreal Canadian fans, did you meet and what do you think of Doug Harvey?
Doug Harvey was he won 6 Stanley Cups. He was 10 times he was an All-Star. 7 times he won the Norris Trophy. Bobby Orr won it 8 times. A Hockey Hall of Fame quarterback. He could be a quarterback. And when he get the puck, he'd just sit there. Till Blake called him a quarterback, and he got. Believe this or not, he got traded. And the last year he was traded, he was an All-Star. He was he was going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he was a Norris Trophy winner, and he got traded. You know why he got traded? Because he was with the Players Association. He went to New York Rangers, and he was absolutely sensational there. He was the player coach. He was a player coach. Now, don't think that isn't tough, being a player coach.
How did the fans of Montreal take it when he got traded? They must have been pretty upset.
Well, he was an honest guy, and he used to say what he thought. It didn't go over too good. And believe it or not, he was traded because he was with the Players Association. So was Ted Lindsay. That's why they have the Ted Lindsay Award.
Like the players vote on the Ted Lindsay Award.
Yeah, and Ted Lindsay actually went out, and he was a star. Ted Lindsay was a star too. But everybody talks about Ted Lindsay and everybody, and so they should. But nobody ever talks about Doug Harvey.
Those guys were the foundation of Willie getting $11.5 million. If it wasn't for Ted Lindsay and Doug Harvey, that wouldn't happen.
And Ted Lindsay, Dollard St. Laurent, Todd Sloan, Jim Thompson, it was a whole bunch of them. And every one of them got traded at the end of the season.
So how did you played against him? You were in Rochester in Quebec. So how did he get to Quebec? Like, did they just bury him in the minors then?
They were just burying him. And they wouldn't invite him back to the National Hockey League. At the end, they brought him back to St. Louis, and he was with Scotty Bowman, which wasn't bad. He was on that team that Bobby went flying through the air. Anyhow,
tell the story. You and I, Cindy, were talking about. You were playing against him in the playoffs in Quebec, and Joe Crozier said, we are not winning this series. Doug Harvey keeps playing the way he's playing. He's unbelievable playing. You should have seen him playing then. We just used to shake our head. And Eddie Litzenberger went out and broke his hand. Just like that. Just went out, just first shift. Wait, to hit him with a stick?
I can still see him breaking his hand. And we won the series, by the way.
He's one of those guys, Dad, that again I think that the NHL doesn't do a good job of promoting how good they were and like kind of what kind of builders they were.
He'll be forgotten in another couple of years. Nobody will even remember. And I used to go down and watch them play ball. He used to play ball. He used to play left field, and I remember he was a real good ball player too. He was good at everything.
Okay, Dad, our next question comes from Timothy from Twitter. And his question is, why did the Bruins ever get rid of Greg Shepherd? He was a solid in his time playing for the Bruins.
He went to Pittsburgh, I think. He went to Pittsburgh for Dick Redmond. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I ever made. Ever made. Dick Redmond used to chew tobacco during the practice. Believe it or not. And I thought, the old Boston Bruin girders are finally rusting away. And Smotsy come up and said, it's Redmond.
But he was like, that was one of the funny things you got rid of Shepherd, because he was the guy that did everything for you. He played the point on the power play. He killed your penalties. He took all your draws.
He was a good friend of Dallas Smith, whatever it was. That was the biggest mistake I ever made. He used to take all the draw. He was a little guy. And he's from Battleford, Saskatchewan.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know why I got rid of him. I have no idea. He used to take the power plays.
He used to play the point on the power play.
Play the point on the power play. He used to take all important draws. What a dumb, stupid, dumb move.
Well, I remember we talked about it a little bit before, but he had something going with Dennis Potvin the one year.
Oh, yeah. And I remember he kept bothering Potvin. And I went to him and I said, look, don't bother this guy. This guy is as mean don't bother this guy. Because we never had much to do with him. And he kept bothering him.
I think he cut him.
Oh.
He cut him with Shepherd cut Potvin with the stick.
And I said, don't bother. Don't stay away from him because he's a mean guy. Holy Dinah, did he hit him one time and wrecked his knee?
Yeah, right at the blue line.
Yeah, right. What a hit. He deserved to get what he got. We never went after Potvin because Shepherd deserved what he got. Greg Shepherd, why I got rid of Greg Shepherd, I have no idea. It was the dumbest move I ever made as a coach.
Okay, this is from BB Fan from Twitter. Don, what do you think of Bill Belichick leaving the New England Patriots?
You know, it's a funny thing. I've always said a coach should be in the National Hockey League. He should be the coach for 5 years and then get rid of him because they know your speech. They know everything about you. They know what's going on. And I left at 5 years, and he should have left at 5 years. And boy, oh boy, he's a good coach. And
he kind of had the same philosophy in coaching that you did, is that he just, when he talked to a player, just don't worry about the other guy, just do your job.
Yeah, just do your job. I remember in the point, and just cover the points. And I could never get over how guys used to try to cover each other for the points. Like they'd leave one point, go to the other one, and I just cover the point. That's all you have to do. And Bobby Schmutz was the guy that got me on that.
Yeah, one thing with Belichick, though, Dad, like Boston guys reporters are pretty tough. And he was kind of gruff with them all the time.
He was gruff.
And I thought, it's all right doing that when you're winning. But if you start doing that stuff when you're struggling, I don't think
he still did it.
Yeah, he didn't change. And I think the reporters were getting a little...
Let me put it this way to you, Tim. It was time for him to leave.
Think he'll get another job?
Oh, are you kidding? What they're talking about him going to Atlanta.
Yeah.
He'd be interviewed twice there.
Cindy and Dad, we'd like to thank our sponsors, NorthstarBets.com. It's a Canadian-owned and still one of the best places to play in Canada. They have everything you're looking for: slots, live dealer tables, sportsbook with built-in sports betting insight and analysis. And listeners who already have an account with spreads.ca don't have to do anything. Just sign in to NorthstarBets.com. It's not available in Ontario. We'd like to thank North Star Bets for a very successful contest they had. For one of you listeners could win one of Dad's jackets on Coach's Corner. We'll get in more information on the winner as it comes. We've run into a bit of technical difficulty, so we won't be able to answer any more of your questions on this podcast. So what we're going to do is run a Grapevine show of Gerry Cheevers. Gerry played with Dad in Rochester, and then Gerry was his goalie in Boston when Dad was coaching the Bruins. So here we are, the Don Cherry Grapevine podcast with Gerry Cheevers.
Well, there, pal. We've come a long way since Rochester, eh?
An awful long way, Graves. You only went about 90 miles down the road, but we've been traveled around. I should say one thing right now. This year, Gerry Eamon, a great American League player, Don Cherry, an American League player, and myself are being inducted into the Rochester Americans Hall of Fame, and it's a privilege to go in the same year as you.
All right, that's pretty good, eh? Gerry, I got it. The guy put it in, he says, you're not going in for your playing, he says, you're going in for your coaching. I mean, that hurt, I'll tell you that. I'm a pretty good player. Oh, I played in front of you, I was a pretty good guy. I mean, a few times you get hit in the...
You were a good guy.
Yeah.
I can't argue that.
Yeah. Not a good player, eh? You're not going to say
anything. I said you were a good guy.
I could fight, though.
Yes, you could. The greatest fight I ever saw, you and Spider Mazer. I couldn't believe it. That was my first year of pro, maybe my second. You hit each other over the head with the sticks. Yeah. You both in getting stitched up together. I says, I got another 19 years of this to go through.
I think I was about 25. That was a good one. Remember Red Berenson now? You remember the Red Baron?
Oh, yeah. I gone through my whole junior career, first couple years of pro without a serious injury. My wife presented me with a child the night before, a premature child, weighed 6 pounds, very tough night, and I never went to bed all night. And the first shift down the ice, Red Berenson was a great American League player. He comes down in grapes, and I wasn't sharp that night, and usually when a player come down on grapes, I felt I had to be sharp to bail us out. And anyway, he danced around grapes like I expected, and let a routine shot go, and I missed it, and that was the first time I got seriously injured. I lost all my teeth and 40 stitches. And I want to thank you, or else I would have
that's good.
I would never been a complete hockey player.
Crow made you go back, did he? Joe Crozier?
I got stitched up and finished the game.
Yeah, stitched up, knocked all...
You got benched.
I got benched. Well, what else is new? Remember the next day he wanted you to practice. I go in and... You said, go in, Grapes, and ask him if I have to practice.
Well, the old Crow, Joe Crozier we're talking about, our coach, He was a great coach, I thought. He had some funny ways.
Made you go back out and practice. Pitt Martin, another one. I mean, I remember.
That was the safest thing in the world for me, though. I never get hit in practice.
Oh, you're not kidding. We'll talk about that a little later.
Geez.
How about Pitt Martin? That was a scary one, though. I have to admit this one.
That was one of the worst injuries I've ever had in hockey. Once again, Pitt Martin was coming down the ice in the American League, and he was about to either go around or through Don Cherry. I couldn't figure out what at the time. And I thought he was going to go around, and I was prepared for that, but he went through him. And I reached out to grab the puck, and my hand slipped out of my glove, and he skated right over my hand. And I think I was out for a good 2 or 3 months there. It was a terrible injury. And
now, what do you love best? And I'm going to throw this one at you. And what do you love best? I know back when you played what you love. You love the horses or do you love hockey the best?
Well, I love them both equal. We'll put it that way. It's they've gone both together with me all my life, and I enjoy them both. It's if I didn't enjoy them, I wouldn't be there.
Royal Ski, what a horse.
You're the only guy that ever jinxed them.
Yeah.
I had a champion horse. Royal Ski, I had a champion horse, and Grapes, he isn't a horse player or horse bet or anything like that. And this horse should have been 2-year-old champion of the year. He won 7 out of 8 races. And the only day he lost was the day that Grapes bet $50 on it, right?
Said it's a sure thing, and he lost.
I'll never forget that.
Remember, Harry, I couldn't tell you the day of the game or something, and Harry, you tell him day of the game. You won three races in a row, and I told you day of the game, and you won the 3 games, and the day I told you and you lost, that was my fault again. Harry was great for that now. What a team you played in Oklahoma. What a team there, boy. My brother played on that team.
He sure did, and that was a great team. A lot of guys have gone on, John Paul Parisi.
Yeah.
Cash, that was when I first discovered that Wayne Cashman was a great competitor and winner in that team. Who else? But Terry Crisp was coaching in the NHL. Glenn Sather was there. Teddy Irvine. I mentioned John Paul Parisi. Peter Panagacko. That was a lot of fun.
Jean Pronovo, 50-goal scorer.
Jean Pronovo, 50-goal. You're right. Yeah. And boy, you got a good memory.
I don't forget. What do you think? I'm a pretty face around here, or what?
You got a good memory.
Yeah.
He wants me to comment on his tie. That's a nice tie, Don.
Thank you very much. Not what you said before. No, you played. I used to, when we get up 6-1, and we did used to get up 6-1, you were in the net. I used to go nuts because I knew we were going to have a heart attack any time now. But you never cared about your average, eh? It was always the wins. And what was the record? Now, I want you to tell a record that you set in the National Hockey League.
I didn't set any record. The team I played on set a record.
All right, don't give it that one.
We went 33 games without losing. And this is no kidding.
Of course, you had...
Robert was playing at the time. And I can tell you a story about that record. We went 33 games without losing, and we had first place cinched, and we were getting ready for the playoffs, and our coach, Tom Johnson, decided that he'd rest Bobby Orr and Phil Esposito the night that the streak was broken, and it was 4-0 at the 10-minute mark.
Well, that sounds like Tom.
Yeah, right.
Won't go any farther than that.
Okay.
Do you remember that game at Philly, that overtime game? Remember that? That was...
it's like 2 overtimes.
Yeah, 2 overtimes. It was 10-1. I think he had about 60...
10-1.
10-1. That's when it ended. Something like
time,
that.
Yeah.
Oh, not 10-1.
I know we missed last call.
And it really bugs me. You couldn't get to the bar in time, right? That really bothered me. But you remember that game? That was an unbelievable game.
Yeah, and it was an up and down game for 2 overtimes also. And we're lucky. I think Terry O'Reilly scored the winning goal.
I put him on.
But it was your win, no doubt about it. That was one of the fun hockey games I played in too, because anytime you win, and we've all won and lost in overtime, but it's really nice to win.
It was nice to beat Philly too, because remember they were the guys that put you out, and they were the Broad Street Bullies. Did we show those guys the next 3 years?
We certainly did. Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on when I got there, how much you guys hated Philly. But remember the Canada Cup back in '76? That had to be one of your favorite times. Tell us about how you drove the coaches nuts.
Well, that was '76, and as we all know, Bobby played in that series, and all the best players. And I could never make a team like that. I was asked to go, and you have to practice hard, and I was not a great practice player, as Don
That's
knows.
putting it mildly, but go ahead.
Right. And Don knew that, and he was one of the coaches, and I'm sure that Don wanted me to play and understood me. But the other coaches, Scotty Bowman and Bobby Crum, I think it was.
And Al McNeil.
And Al McNeil, they just couldn't believe that this guy, I could ever be there too. And he
used to steer the pucks into the net for the...
And Don always backed me in all their meetings they had, and he must have had meetings every day. And Bobby Crum, he just couldn't take it anymore, so he decided to practice tip-ins with me in goal. and I just fired my gloves and sticks at him and walked off.
Yeah,
I couldn't take it anymore.
But
and needless to say, I went through the whole series as the backup goalie,
With
chief cheerleader, and I never got in the game.
That's all right. You had
But it was a lot of fun.
Remember the game when Sittler set the record in Toronto? What do you get, 11 points or something like that? You were the backup goalie.
That was
Poor
my first game dressed when I come back from the little hockey. Yeah.
Poor Davey Reese.
Yeah. Davey Reese was a nice guy, and
I think
that was
after
his last game.
Yeah, that was his last game he ever played. I looked down at him. It was about the 8th goal, and I looked at Gerry, and I went like that to Gerry. And he put a towel over his head and went down like that. But you come back the next night, we shut out Detroit. I never forgot that. Tell us about the WHA. A lot of strange things. You played for Cleveland, right?
Yeah.
Besides getting the big dough there, a lot of strange things went on there.
Well, I love the WHA. Really, it gave me the opportunity to meet a lot of different
You
players.
played great against the Russians in that series. You're the most valuable player.
Yes, it was. It's against the goalie had to be that day, believe me, to survive. But I met a lot of new friends in the WHA, and it was a different competition. It's usually in NHL, most practice were optional, and I think of the first couple of years, the games were optional for a lot of players. First game, I'll never forget. We went in there, and I walked in, and I went in to have my usual in-between period cigarette, and 4 guys were having hot dogs. Right? I said, this is going to be somewhat of a country club feeling, but it was maybe, but not really. It served a great purpose in hockey, the WHA, because there's some franchises. But I should tell one story that Sports Illustrated come to me after the first game of the WHA, and Cleveland did play the first game, and they said, what is the big difference in the WHA and the NHL? And I said, well, from where I see it, being a goaltender, every time I look and see number 4 going up the ice, it's not Bobby Orr, it's Ralph Hopovari. And Ralph was a very good kid, played in our team, tried very hard, but obviously he wasn't a Bobby Orr. And his parents sent letters to me.
Oh, they were after you and everything. They pick it up, don't worry.
Never said, you try to be funny and it jumps back at you.
Remember George Plimpton?
Oh, I loved him. He's a great man.
He was, remember Seaweed was, and you guys scared the life out of him, the poor bugger?
Yeah. Well, George Plimpton wrote a story on the Bruins. Poor what?
Bugger.
He's a fighter in England, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
So,
Pugner.
Oh, okay. So, Plimpton wanted to do a story in the Bruins, and for some reason he got to room with this great character we had, Jim Petty, called Seaweed. He was going to play goal in an exhibition game in Philly for 5 minutes, and Don put him in with Jimmy Petty, who was a great favorite of all ours, right? So we used to go to this bar similar to the Grapevine here and hang out after practice, and Cash and I led the troops in there, and he wanted to be all part of it, so we got in there, and one thing led to another. We had a very good session that night, drinking beer, and in fact, we had the lacrosse sticks out playing lacrosse in the middle of the bar. It was an awful evening.
Just a normal night for the Bruins.
Normal training camp evening, and Plimpton said I had to leave. This is 1:45. We knew that Don wouldn't be checking curfew that night for whatever reason, and
I was afraid what I'd find.
Yeah, right. And he says, I got to go home because young Jim Petty is a rookie, and I don't want to wake him up and bother him. He's trying to make the team. And we said, don't worry about it. He says, no. So he left. So he snuck in, opened the door, crawled into bed, never made a sound, and was peacefully sleeping. And about 5:30 in the morning, in comes Seaweed Petty. Hi, George. How are you? And everything like that. But George continued on.
And I'm the coach. Can you imagine that? I didn't know that was going on.
We had George played a period for us, stopped a penalty shot by Reggie Leach. Yeah. I'm not so sure it was in the satchel or straight up, but it was a good effort. And he went in to get undressed, and then we had the biggest brawl in history of hockey. It was really probably an insult to hockey, too. And poor George, who wanted to do anything to write about it, was in the restroom in the shower, right? That was... it
was the biggest disappointment of his life.
Right.
Tell you the truth. The worst practice player in the world. He used to steer the pucks into the net. You remember that? Remember the time I almost had you go in there once? Well,
if we ever got divorced, it would have had to been this time. We had a week off. We had won first place in a bye, and Grape said to me, you don't have to come for practice for the whole week. And I said, well, I got to practice. I'm coming. He says, no, don't go, because he knew I'd ruin practice. The players hated me in practice and everything. And I said, I'm going. He says, no, I don't want you there till Friday. Take a good skate and go play the games. Anyway, I showed up. We warmed up a little bit, and he called all the players to center ice, and he said, you get down the net. And obviously, we were going to scrimmage, and I heard him say something to the players, and there was a little chuckle and all that. And I really didn't apprehend what was going on. Then all of a sudden, Peter McNabb come down in a breakaway, and Peter's a pretty good goal scorer, and he hit me in the stomach, and he raised his arms. And it didn't hit me yet. Then Terry Riley came down, and Terry likes to deke and dive, and he shot into my pads, and raised his arm for a goal. And I still couldn't figure it out. Then finally I figured out that Gerry told them at center ice, if they hit me, it'd count as a goal in scrimmage. I threw my gloves and stick at him. It was the closest we came to divorce.
Yeah, that's true. But, you know, I remember the time I left you in Buffalo. Remember that time? It was one of the genius move on my part.
Well, we had a big game in Buffalo on a particular evening, and we played somewhere else the night before, and he was going to play the other goaltender the night before, and I was going to play the game in Buffalo. So he sent me by myself a little early the night before to get a good rest, and that's really a bad play on his part. And I got in there, and I thought I'd go have a couple of beers, and got paralyzed, needless to say. Never stopped the puck the next night. We got beat 8-1, and that was the end of that
nice
system.
move on my part.
Yeah.
How about the story about Bobby in Oakland?
Oh, that was a great story. This Bobby is, we all know, and even his teammates, he was the greatest player to play the game, and we're killing a penalty. Eddie J was playing goal that time, and I was on the bench and was right next to the Oakland Seal bench, and Bobby was killing the penalty, and he liked to rag the puck at all, and he got it, and he circled our net, went up the right boards, and one of the Oakland players hit him, and knocked Bobby's glove off, but he still controlled the puck, went down inside their blue line, circled around, back around our net. No one could believe what he was doing because he really gave up an opportunity of a scoring chance. Circled our net. The Oakland players started picking him up. Finally, he come bolting down the door, the right side, stopped, picked up his glove, went in and scored a goal. I looked up, and our bench was crazy.
It's a true story.
But the best part of the story was, even though our bench was in a frenzy, the Oakland bench was up cheering too, so I knew we were in good shape.
Tell us a quick story about Bobby Hull, the way he used to come down and blast him. Got to be quick,
Oh my God. You know, thank God I had 3 or 4 sets of underwear. I never got through the games. He was scary, Bobby Hull was. And we were 2 men short. And I always told my defenseman, like Bob or someone like that, I'd say, you take the short side, I'll take the long side. So the Hull was on the point with Pierre Plot on the other side. He'd pass it to Hull, and I'm supposed to take the middle of the net, and the defenseman, say Bobby or Teddy Green or someone, would take the short side. But I'd always cheat a little bit, and I'd be right behind them. And he shot one, and I always left my stick there. I could handle my stick pretty good, and I tipped it off the glass, went back to Plot, back to Hull again. And he walked in a step closer. And finally, the defense is moving away. To make a long story short, this happened 4 times. The 5th time, I was tumbling over my defenseman in the corner of the ice of the rink, and he hit it. He had to get it high because I was stopping all the loans. He put it right through the crossbar, through the press box.
And you weren't in the net, he told me.
I was in the corner.
Put it there,
All right.
Gerry, boy, way to go. You weren't there. Let's go.